in your book where you meet Maria at Harborview, and you just have this moment where you're like, hold on a minute, I've been through what you're going through. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, because this is like urban legend status at this point. And there are a lot of versions of this story, but this is the horse and this is the mouth. This is the person that actually had the experience. So for the record, yes, I'd love to tell you. So back to Harborview Medical Center, young social worker, ambitious. It's an academic University of Washington setting. I wanted to climb the academic ladder and did, but at that time, I didn't even know where the ladder was. And I needed a research to advance academically anywhere in the world. You need to do peer-reviewed research published in a journal with a review committee. I mean, the standards are high. And I just couldn't find anything I was interested in until Maria and the shoe on the ledge. And this is the story. A woman, Hispanic, was admitted to Harborview Medical Center at night, unconscious from heart attack. It was beyond that, but for the sake of this broadcast, a heart attack. And she'd never been to Seattle, and she was what's called a direct admit to the coronary care unit, which means they went through the emergency room but kept on going because she had ongoing CPR, back to what we talked about. The next day, I met her because she needed money. We had to find her family, all kinds of social worky things to do. And off I went. Later in the day, I got paged back to the coronary care unit because, and I'm skipping ahead, I left out something important. About 3 days had gone by, and I really didn't need to interact with Maria much anymore. Spanish was her primary language. There was an interpreter who stepped in, and I really, she's a nice woman. I had done everything I needed to meet her needs. But one morning, about 3 days after she was admitted, she did go into cardiac arrest. I was on the unit at that time and observed it. It was an easy resuscitation. She was unconscious afterwards, but breathing on her own. I went about my day. But then I was called back because her nurse said, Maria is awake, she's agitated. Couldn't find the translator, so no one knew what was agitating her. And social worker, come up and fix it. So like, okay. My Spanish, I took 3 years of Spanish in high school, and I didn't do well. I wish I had at this moment, because I couldn't find the translator either. Maria was agitated, so we just took a breath. So what I'm going to tell you is my version of that interview, which is more like travel language, like, and if you've traveled, it is possible to communicate through, and then up there, bathroom, I mean, whatever it takes. So she was doing that. And here's the summation in very short shrift of what she told me. First, she said, she pointed to a corner of the ceiling of her room and said that's where she was. And she was looking down on the room and was able to tell me who was in the room, what the equipment was doing. And I was kind of eyeball rolling at that time, because I was the best and worst person for her to speak with. The best because, well, I'd had a similar experience, but the worst is that I'd already decided I was that highly functioning schizophrenic. So I didn't want to hear anything about it. But there was a piece of equipment that caught my attention that she described. And that was back in the day, this is before Wi-Fi stuff. There were big machines filled with paper, early light valves, and they would spew cardiac information that when the patient was, in stable sinus cardiac rhythm or dead, the doctors would, fold up all these papers and study them in a room on the floor. I know no one told her about that. That equipment's only brought in under ongoing resuscitation efforts. But and then she said, just like that, she had no sense of traveling. She was distracted by something out of her window, and she described perfectly the emergency room entrance, the curvature of the driveway, the one-way traffic, the doors automatically opening and shutting. And I thought, yeah, big deal. Her room is directly above that door. So probably somebody, she doesn't remember. I knew she wasn't lying, but somebody probably pushed her bed over by the window to clean, some housekeeper or something, which was a dumb thing to conclude, because and no housekeeper is going to unplug a critically ill patient and go, hold your breath there. Excuse me, stubborn stain. Got to work this out. I mean, but that's where my mind was going. And then she said she was distracted. She found herself outside in another part of the hospital, but eyeballed a shoelace with a dark blue, large tennis shoe that had a little scuff on the outside toe and a white lace that went under the heel. That's a lot of details for someone who isn't speaking good English, talking to someone who isn't listening with good Spanish speaking skills. But it was that kind of detail. And the reason she was agitated, it wasn't because she was in distress. She was excited. She wanted someone to go out and find the shoe. But she didn't know exactly where it was. Harborview Medical Center is immense. And so couldn't you ask someone else to go? But no, it was down to me. I went outside and was looking up. The sidewalk that I was on was hugging the building. And I didn't see any shoe from that close proximity, but a bird flew on a ledge. Then I didn't see the bird. So I thought, I'm going to have to go inside. Skeptics, such as just the podcast I did 2 days ago, say, well, why didn't you just step back? Well, the reason is because there's an ambulance driveway behind me. If you step off this sidewalk, again, trauma center. And I actually I parked in an underground garage for all the years I worked there, like 10 plus years. And it was easier to shortcut across that driveway, but I called it the gauntlet. Everyone called it the gauntlet because it just too much traffic at high speed. And then the question is, well, why don't you step back further? Good question. There was a cliff, a big long cliff onto a major freeway. So it wasn't going to do that. I went inside, and the windows and the part of the hospital where I started was the center of the hospital, and they went almost to the floor. So all I had to do was walk around. I was on the 3rd floor at that time. These were my former patients. This is where they spilled to after the ICU. It wasn't a big deal. I mainly could just look in and go, oh, there's not a shoe there. And what am I doing looking for a shoe? And why is there a shoe on the ledge anyway? A question that remains unanswered. And I made my way around, and I'm like 17% Irish. So I call it the luck o' the Kim, which means no luck. I actually had started out on the wrong side of the building, but that's fine. Made my way around. Some rooms I had to step into all the way to the glass because there were, at that time, probably still is, 2-tiered metal carts that held stuff, towels, basins, lotions, and all that. And if they were in front of the window, I couldn't see the ledge. I was on the west side of the building. There was one of those situations. So I had to go in, and I looked down, and there was a large men's dark blue tennis shoe. I couldn't see the outside scruffy part, but I could see a white lace. And everything changed for me right there. It was like everything fell together. All those jigsaw pieces that I told you about just went boop and formed a picture called my life. And I really was so shocked I couldn't support my own body weight. So I bonked my forehead against the glass, and then out loud said, this happened to me. And I remember the momentary fogging from my breath on the glass. I remember everything so clearly from that time. So again, no drama other than the fact that there was a shoe on a ledge that we couldn't account for. This story has been told so often that it's just gotten ridiculous in some cases. To clarify, the shoe was blue. It was on a ledge. It was found by a social worker, me. One author that had a best-selling book had me climbing out of the window and on my hands and knees, crawling along a ledge, turning a corner and then getting the shoe and then backing up and, you know, rinse and repeat.
I was actually just thinking, when you're telling this story, I've heard this because it was in Leslie Kane's book, Surviving Death. I think that's where I read it. And I think
I wrote that. You wrote that. You can take that to the bank.
Yes.
I wrote that.
And I think we talked, because we interviewed Leslie Kane about a year ago, and she's absolutely incredible. We love her. She's such a wonderful human, isn't she? And
yes.
And I think she mentioned this story as well, didn't she, Im? Yes. So it's great to be talking to the source. Like, how incredible.
And here you are, back to here's the horse in the mouth. But I also want to add that Maria's body was on the second floor center of this mammoth facility. Where I found the shoe was on the west side of the building on the third floor, not even close to where she was. And again, I've heard every skeptical response possible. I'm sure it was, well, you know, how do you know that no one brought her around to that side of the building? Well, because of the medics' report. Why were they going to go on a little tour, you know, of the
you don't do that when someone's in cardiac arrest, do you? You're not like, oh,
hey,
let's go for a ride.
Like a nice sunset, you know, let's go check it out. We got the time.
Oh, look, a shoe.
Look, a shoe. Yeah. And then it was, well, could any employees have seen the shoe and talked about it around her? And sure, but why? Also, I tend to believe that the shoe was recently placed there. I don't know why, but eventually someone would see the shoe and either kick it off the ledge or bring it in and toss it. You know, I don't know. I just, again, what's a shoe doing out on the ledge anyway? I just don't know. But having mentioned this, now you will start seeing single shoes in the oddest places because your awareness has just been lifted. And it's weird to be driving down a highway and go, a shoe? And again, don't you notice that you're only wearing one shoe now? I don't get it. But I didn't crawl out on I mean, this is the time of mini skirts, mid 70s, when I'm going to flash all of Seattle. I mean, just no. I reached out and I grabbed the shoe. But I did take it down to Maria and asked her, still no translator though, I couldn't believe it. Does she remember anything on the inside? No, she never saw the inside. And then I had the shoe behind my back because I'm really a mean person. But then I pulled it out, and then my Spanish came back, and it was Viva Zapata. And that shoe, this wasn't like a flash in a pan kind of experience. Maria was in the hospital for 3 weeks, so it wasn't just then. And then she was an outpatient at Harborview, which I also covered, and I followed her as an outpatient for 3 years. So, and then I was young and went backpacking around Europe, and I had graduate students at that time. They took over. I came back and they had lost Maria. I never saw her again. I don't know what happened. But this was a long-term relationship, not a, oh, I hear tell, I met this woman once. I mean, this was established. I didn't go blathering on about it. The nurses did. I thought it was for me. It's like, ooh, now I'm going to ask everybody who's resuscitated what they remember about being dead. Talk about a leading question.
Yeah.
But for 2 months, no one said, oh, until the teenager I told you about who saw Oompa. And then there were 3 of us. And I thought, I'm just going to keep asking. And now, by one account, in 40 years, more than 10,000 people have come through the door of the support group called Seattle IANDS. Now, those people are in great part repetitive visitors. You know, I mean, it's not like 10,000 separate souls have been through, but a lot of people. So at my age, I can look back at the wake I have left in the waters, and I can see it's pretty big.